Here they are.
All right. Hi, I'm Jill, and I love to read. Today I will be sharing some new and popular books I have read so far this year. I think I've read about 22, let's see what Fable says. Yes, 22 books this year so far. So I'll go over most of them. These are going to be the ones that have spoken to me the most or I've just enjoyed the most. You ever feel like sushi is the greatest gift to ever come out of the ocean? Okay, first up is rereads. So in January, I reread 2 books simply because they were going to be put on the big screen and I just wanted to revisit the stories I love. The first one is Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters. So I read this because season 2 came out. And this is just one of those series that just feels like home, you know? The characters and the quests just make it a very fun read. The siren scene in this one is just everything to me. And Tyson is like the sweetest creature on the planet. Like, what do you mean that Percy was the blessing that saved Tyson from the bullies? I'm just in love with Rick Riordan's creativity with this series, and displaying neurodiversity as a gift makes me wish I read this for the first time a lot sooner than I actually did. 5 stars. Okay, so the second reread was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. The movie came out in January, so of course I needed to reread this. I read it a couple years ago for the first time, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but this is my favorite of the Emily Henry books. Another 5-star. I loved the sense of adventure and wanderlust and spontaneity brought out by Poppy, but yet balanced out by Alex's grounded and careful personality. It was a good opposites attract. Plus, it really opened my mind to a friends to lovers scenario, because at first I was like, I'm allergic, ew, but it got me good. It also holds one of my favorite book quotes ever when they're in New Orleans and Poppy says that she wishes she could bottle up this moment and wear it as a perfume. It's just beautiful. And I'm so shocked that people rank it so low amongst her books because, let's face it, it was better than the other ones. I said it. Okay, up next in the month of January, we have a book that absolutely tore my heart out, and that is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This is a popular novel that I finally got to this year. There are not enough words to describe this book. A solid 5 stars, easily. It follows these 2 sisters in France fighting behind the scenes of World War II. We see 2 very different perspectives of war through their eyes and how each woman played a critical role in the outcome. They were the war heroes fighting the unseen battles. This was a work of art. Okay, on to February. The next book I want to talk about is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I read it on my Kindle. I rated it a 3.5 stars. It's not a new release, but it became very popular this year with the movie. It's a story about these 2 characters, Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff, who fall in love with each other after growing up together. One is a servant and one has to marry well, so the story just kind of unravels from there with a vengeful and tragic tale full of obsession, betrayal, and miscommunication. I really liked the emo, gothic tone it had. The vengeful arc goes crazy in this. Talk about a situationship that will haunt you for the rest of your life. That's what this book is in a nutshell. Characters were so hard to like, no redeemable qualities. The hardest part was probably following the writing and understanding the writing style. I just felt so dumb reading it. And honestly, I do enjoy a book that makes me feel a little dumb, you know? Also, I'll have you know, I went into this thinking that it was going to be a romance. How embarrassing for me. But like, didn't we all? They advertised it as a romance, at least for the movie. Anyways, it was very much not a romance, and it was an acquired taste for sure. Moving on, we have The Jills by Karen Parkman. This was another February read, and I gave it 3 stars. I'm gonna be so for real. I only bought this because it had my name on it. And that may be the most chaotic and impulsive thing I've ever done in book shopping. But this is a mystery thriller about a cheerleader in the Buffalo Bills called Janine who goes missing, and her friend Virginia seeks to find her. Lots of secrets are revealed and the rose-colored glasses are taken off in this book. Reading this was a little outside my comfort zone, but the mystery element to it really drew me in. It was a decent read. Now, the last book in February was My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. This was so good. It was my first Alice Feeney book and I gave it 5 stars. So the story begins with this woman, Eden Fox, who goes out on a morning run only to come back and discover that her key doesn't fit, her husband doesn't recognize her, and he's with another woman who looks so much like her. When I tell you this book was so twisty-turny and the backstory had me jaw-dropped, I feel like my brain melted in this book. I was so locked in. I'm so impressed. Best mystery thriller I've read so far this year. That's that. Okay, in March, I read Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy, which I don't currently have in my possession, but I gave it a 1 star. I know, and before you say anything, I did read her previous book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, and let me tell you, I gave this a 5 stars. I fell in love with her writing and vulnerability in this, but Half His Age was just too disturbing. And I get that that was the whole point, like that was how we were supposed to feel coming out of this book, but honestly, I don't like to get that feeling from a book. I like to feel satisfied, sad, surprised, inspired, even a little angry, but not utterly disgusted to the point of throwing up. No, this teacher-student trope was not it for me. The book follows this 17-year-old girl named Waldo who falls in love with her high school teacher, Mr. Corgi, in an attempt to gain power, value, and desirability. It was really a would've, could've, should've situation, and I regret reading that. More in March, we have Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Again, wasn't new, but was popular with the movie coming out. This was an amazing expedition of a book with its grand scale and high stakes. Just stellar. It's about this science teacher, Ryland Grace, who is a talented biologist, and he wakes up in space millions and millions of miles away from Earth, and with no clue of how he got there. The story follows him recollecting his memories that led up to that moment, which include him being a part of this plan to save Earth. I rated it a 4.75, only because it felt very sciencey at times, and the terminology was a little challenging to understand. But the writing on this is just so detailed and humorously nerdy, and I love it. Actually, to help with my understanding, I had to see the movie halfway through this book and then finish it afterwards. Also, never have I cried so much for a rock. Alrighty, next up in March, we have Anatomy of an Alibi by Ashley Elston. I gave this 4 stars. It was a very intriguing concept of these 2 women who swap lives for the day to uncover these secrets when the husband dies, and it just leads them down this crazy journey of trying to find his killer. I loved the full circle moment in the end and just how satisfying unveiling the truth was in this. I will definitely be reading more of her books in the future. In April, I read Just Friends by Haley Pham, and this was pretty exciting being her debut novel. I gave it a 3.75 stars. It's about these 2 childhood best friends, Blair and Declan, who reunite in their hometown as adults, and Blair ends up working in a local coffee shop where Declan is the manager. This story switches back and forth between the past and present to explain the details of their romance. I thought it was a sweet and fun read. It had a little bit of cheese, but kudos to Haley for writing a friends to lovers second chance trope, which isn't rooted for that often. I also love a good love letter moment. Next up in April, we have The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark. This was a 4.25 stars for me. I knew as soon as I saw it, I needed to read it because it just looked so cool and the blurb had me hooked. It's about this famous author who suddenly passes away before he's able to complete his very popular book series, and these 6 other writers are all summoned to his private island to help finish the last novel. They compete against each other by all writing their own ending, but before they're able to discover who won, a murder takes place. This book did a really good job of finding that sweet spot between making the mystery obvious and unpredictable. The multiple POVs were perfect and so necessary, being that this novel had so many diverse characters and mismatched morals, so many layers. Love that. Now for May, we have Dear Debbie by Freda McFadden. Let me tell you, no one does karma like my girl Debbie. 4 stars. This was also my first and only Freda McFadden read, which is sort of a crime in itself, but that will soon change. So this book follows a suburban wife named Debbie who runs an advice column, and she is seemingly harmless, but eventually reaches a breaking point where she goes down this big dark path of getting even in the name of protecting her loved ones and recovering from her past. Now, I don't know what this says about me, but I was rooting for Deb the entire time. And you know what? That was so on brand for this book too, because being that it was read in her POV, all her actions were justifiable. I've never read such a dangerously unhinged main character before. Well done, Deb. Now, this concludes my half-year recap. I am currently reading Broken Dove by Danny Francis, which is the sequel to Silver Elite. I am enjoying this new release so far, along with the series. I rated Silver Elite 4 stars. Now, I know there are people out there who hate comparing older dystopian novels like Hunger Games and Divergent to newer books and such, but I have to be honest with you. I was thinking of Dauntless while reading this, and I'm not mad about it. It felt like a warm hug back into the fantasy realm. So this story tracks this modified girl with mind powers named Rin Darlington, and she lives in a world where people without powers are called primes, and they're hunting down people like her because they're a threat to society. Yet she gets placed into this government training program with primes for learning how to take out her people, and she has to hide her true identity and learn how to take down the system from within, which proves to be even more difficult when she falls for the training program captain. So I really like this series so far. It's very fun and action-packed, and I never know what's going to happen next. It's just like an easygoing fantasy, easy to follow, you know. I'm easily pleased. What can I say? Anyway, that was this video. Thank you for watching my whole spiel and yapping session about everything I've read so far this year. We have a lot to catch up on. I have exciting reads to come in the future. Real quick, do you hear the rain and the thunder out my window right now? It's pretty crazy. I love the rain. Hopefully I'll see y'all again soon. I'll catch y'all on the flip side. That was so loud. Okay guys, bye.